What's going on, everybody? Today, for the first time, as you can see, I'm on top of a frozen lake. I never stood on top of one before, so it's pretty cool. It's frozen completely solid. I'm actually like closer to the middle than the edge right now. So hopefully nothing happens where the ice falls from beneath my feet and I plunge into the water, because that would probably really suck. But today's video is about dead cultures, or I should say, air quotes, dead cultures. So I find it interesting that a lot of people have a very strong opinion about many ancient cultures that are not prominently practiced today, or maybe were destroyed to a degree where maybe there's not that much left. There's this negative interpretation of these cultures and these groups of people as if they never really contributed much to history or to our lives today. It's sad to hear people have a defeatist attitude toward learning about these cultures and embracing what is left or what is being found, because unfortunately these people tend to give up in this whole pursuit of knowledge of a particular cultural group that has been decimated by whatever the means were. There is still much left, as it is being still discovered to this very day. Now, of course, I understand the argument that we don't know exactly how these cultures are practiced. So how could we then bastardize it and make our own version of it and say that it's authentic or that it's supposedly the way that it was done? I don't think that's the objective. I think the objective is that our ancestors would be much more appreciative of us if we still tried to hold on to something and to try and bring back the spirit that was involved in their culture, right? It doesn't have to be the same, as long as at its foundation it is done in the spirit of these groups, of these cultures, right? The Celtic culture, the Norse culture, the Taino culture, all of these cultures that have been decimated over the course of history still have a prominent influence on many of our daily lives. I think it is a very weakened state that we are in now due to our lack of appreciation of history. If your expertise in history and culture is centered around either your religion or one particular place in the world, then you are very limited in understanding reality. Because what you will find is that cross-culturally, many of these ancient cultures, as I have stated in a previous video, they have many things in common when it comes to their understandings of things that work in nature or things that work on a cosmological scale. So it's important to the human story that we connect the dots as much as we can, because ultimately, all of these cultures contribute to our overall intelligence and our overall spiritual understanding, and most importantly, our overall understanding of how we interact with nature. This is essential to why it is important to keep alive and to continue to research the cultures and groups of people that have been decimated and have not had a streamlined evolution of culture. But nonetheless, this is a sign. If people are looking back to find something to identify with, this is a sign. This is a sign that identity is heavily tied to what one practices in their daily life. And I know another argument people will say is that, well, the cultures that we do have today still have a lot of the same values. They have honor, they have this, they have that, they have trust, they have loyalty, right? And yeah, to an extent, this is true. But you have to understand as well that the mindset driven behind a lot of the Western culture that we based our civilization upon has been heavily detrimental to nature and to the world itself. I understand that people say this is a peaceful time and that this is the best moment in human history, but our ancestors would not be very proud of the lazy slops that we have become today, or the people that oversimplify everything that doesn't need to be simplified and make more complicated the things that are quite simple. At this point in time, it is essential for this influx or reflux of interest in our cultural heritage, and not just genetic heritage. I mean, getting in tune with the natural world, getting in tune with ourselves, getting in tune with allowing ourselves to be responsible for our spiritual practice, allowing ourselves to be responsible for the way that we carry ourselves, the way that we do all these things. And I know nothing I'm saying here is new. I understand that. I'm just saying that we really need to sit down and think of these things and think of what these things mean to us. Because more often than not, many people like, again, to simplify things, and many of which don't see the value in looking into the past for things that could fix our problems today and potentially for the future. So this is why it's important to keep these so-called dead cultures alive to a degree and to do something with it. Many people tend to write off many of these cultures and their history as very savage or uncivilized or whatever the case was, but then when they want to get a cool tattoo, or when they want to represent something about their country's history or whatever, then they want to dress up like them. They want to get the tattoos of the symbols that they had. A lot of people don't even understand the meanings behind the symbols that are left behind by these ancient cultures, yet they have them tattooed all over them. So I find it quite interesting that it is only there for mockery or for theatrics. But apparently it's not good enough to continue or to revitalize certain practices or certain ideas, you know. And anyway, I'm sure if you're watching this channel, you're probably, someone that does value these things. And for that, I'm grateful for, knowing that there are people out there that do value these things of many different backgrounds and everything. And that's fantastic. But again, we cannot write off certain cultures simply because they suffered at the pitfall of a colonization or a decimation or a conversion. We have to still value them, just as we value every culture that contributes to our society today. Because whether you know it or not, they did contribute in some ways greater than the ones that we have today. So we need to look back at them and see what is it that they had, that they figured out that could help us today. Because that's what we need. We need a cultural shift. We need a re-understanding of the way we interact with this world. And anyway, that's all I got today, guys. But I appreciate you for listening, and y'all have a wonderful day. Peace.